Making mushroom gummies is a relatively easy task. However, if you're not careful with the process, you can end up degrading the beneficial compounds you're trying to extract. This video will show you how to properly extract the compounds from whatever mushroom you're using and turn them into mushroom gummies. We aren't going to be overly focused on taste and texture in this video. This is just about getting the process correct so that you get as much beneficial compound into the gummy as possible. Before we jump into the recipe, there are a few things worth understanding, but I'll keep it quick. First, mushroom gummies are easy to make at home using mushrooms that are commonly brewed as a tea. That's because we already know that they work well with hot water extraction, which is exactly what we need to get the active compounds out of the mushroom and into the gummy. In this video, I'll be using cordyceps, but you could be using turkey tail, chaga, or any mushroom that's traditionally used as a tea. The main thing you've got to understand is the separation of these two steps, the extraction of the mushroom into the liquid and the blooming and dissolving of the gelatin into the mixture. Mushroom compounds often need high temperatures and time to extract, whereas gelatin needs a relatively low temperature to bloom, dissolve and set properly. So if you combine those two steps, you can end up ruining one or both. Also, before you start, do a bit of research on the specific mushroom you're using, mainly its best extraction temperature and the point where the compounds you care about start to break down. For example, with cordyceps, I will be extracting cordycepin, which extracts well around 60 and 70 degrees Celsius. Whereas if I was using turkey tail or say reishi, they normally extract at much higher temperatures, which would of course destroy the gelatin phase. Finally, a lot of gummy recipes use fruit juice. In this video, I'm going to be using grape juice. However, be aware that the citric acid inside of a fruit juice can affect some of the compounds which you are trying to extract. So they might make them stronger, they might make onset faster, or they might affect the shelf life of how long they stay stable. So if you're using something like chaga, I know that that is affected by acidity and that would increase the strength of some of the compounds found within. Okay, let's get to the recipe now. So, here's everything you're going to need. Your mushroom of choice, a pan and lid, a coffee grinder if your mushrooms aren't already powdered, 20 grams of gelatin, 40 grams of dextrose, although I end up using 10 grams, which is why my jellies come out a bit soft, fruit juice, a cafetiere, a cooking thermometer, and finally some gummy molds. Here's the recipe I'm going to make. It'll be 126 gummies, 2 milliliters per gummy, using 100 grams of cordyceps powder, which comes out at roughly 800 milligrams per gummy of cordyceps extract. On my website, I have created a calculator for all of this, so you don't have to do the maths yourself. You can go and use a calculator. It's going to make everything a lot easier. First step for me is just to grind down the cordyceps into a powder, and I just use a simple coffee grinder for that. Next, I just fill up a pan with 500 milliliters of water, and I am going to put a thermometer into that. I set the thermometer for 67 degrees Celsius, so this is just underneath 70 degrees where cordycepin starts to break down. And then we just add the cordyceps and then heat up the water to 67 degrees C. Heat the contents up, and then once you get to 67 degrees, put the lid on the pan and just leave it. Every so often it's gonna drop down to 60 degrees again, give it a stir, and then heat it back up to 67 degrees, and just keep doing this for about 30 minutes. You can also use an instant pot if you put it on the sous vide setting. This means less monitoring, but make sure that you verify the temperatures with a thermometer beforehand, because I find it less accurate. So if it's, say, out by 2, just lower it down. So next thing you've got to do is strain the liquid away from the mushroom pulp. To do that, I am just using a French press. I actually set this French press up wrong initially and started to panic when I pushed down and saw instantly that I'd made a mistake. Managed to recover it luckily, and I've got other things that I use for making teas and stuff anyway, so I still managed to recover it in the end. But yeah, you've just got to make sure you strain off all the mushrooms so you're just left with your extract. Next, I get a wider pan because I'm going to do a reduction of the liquid down to 252 milliliters to fit in all of the gummies. So pour out 252 milliliters or whatever volume of liquid you're using into a pan, and then you want to use a spoon and dip the spoon in the water and then use a bit of tape to measure the line where the water comes up to. When all of the ingredients are combined and then reduced, this line is where the liquid should come up to, so it should equal around 252 milliliters, which is then going to be our 126 gummies. If you're capable of using a French press first time correctly, then you probably won't need a little tea strainer like I'm using here. So here I have my cordyceps extract, and it's around 500 milliliters currently. I'm going to add the fruit juice in now and the dextrose, and then I'm going to start reducing it. Because it's just the cordyceps currently, I can do a reduction at around 60 to 70 degrees C, but then later, once we add the gelatin, that temperature is going to have to come down. So I just run it at 60 to 70 degrees C, and I keep turning the heat off every time we come towards 70 degrees. You can see the pot's not simmering, it's not boiling or anything. We've just got small amounts of steam coming off as the liquid evaporates. While the liquid is reducing, it's time to bloom the gelatin. So you want to pour out 100 milliliters of cold water and then just sprinkle your gelatin on top and keep stirring it, and then sprinkle the gelatin again. After a few minutes, the gelatin will start to look a bit like slush or ice which has melted, and then after 10 minutes it will start to really solidify and it will look like this. Before you add the gelatin, make sure you reduce the temperature of your liquid extract to between 50 and 60 degrees C. Once that's mixed, you just want to complete the reduction down to the level of the spoon. Now we're just going to set our mixture into the molds. So put the mold on a baking tray. This means they're easier to move around. And you just want to transfer all of your liquid into your mold. Typically people like to use pipettes, but I just like to use a 10 milliliter syringe because it's much faster for getting them out. Once you've put all of your liquid into the molds, just put the moulds in the fridge, and then they will set within about an hour and they'll be ready to consume. And there we go, you can see mine are set now. Mine are a little bit squishy because I didn't put enough dextrose in, but as long as you follow the process in this order, you'll be able to make mushroom gummies and do whatever you like with flavors and changing the textures yourself. Hopefully you liked the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.